This is The Sundering of Ways, first book of the Avalloneth. Chapter 1. The Watch at Harnhold. The sun was sinking westward beyond the long shoulders of the hills, and with it went the day's last certainty. Havjörn rested his hands on the cold stone of the parapet and told himself, not for the first time, to look south and not west. The task was simple. Watch the pass, watch the road, watch the shadows where the land dipped and rose again beyond the lake's reach. No caravans had come through in days, no riders, no messengers, no wanderers even, and that absence weighed on him more heavily than the sword at his side. Still the sky kept pulling at his eyes. Gold had given way to copper, copper to bruised purple, and now thin veins of fire lingered along the clouds like embers refusing to die. The light caught on the timbers of Harnhold's upper works, warming the rough grain of the wood, softening the angles where ancient stone met new craft of the towered fortress. It was the kind of evening that made a man forget fear, and Havjörn did not trust it for that very reason. Havjörn bore the build of a farmer's son, broad through the shoulders and steady on his feet. His strength worn openly in the thick muscle of his arms and the calloused hands that rested easily on scythe or sword. His skin was fair, quick to flush in the cold or under a sudden gaze, and his wheat-coloured hair never quite lay as neatly as he wished. His eyes were clear and attentive, missing little, and when he spoke it was with care, as though words were tools not to be wasted. There was a quiet seriousness to him, a sense that he stood where he was meant to stand, not because it was easy, but because it was right.
"Still nothing,"
he said, mostly to prove he was paying attention. Beside him, Arnoren leaned on the parapet with casual ease, his spear resting loosely in the crook of his arm, its butt tapping idly against the parapet whenever he shifted his weight. Arnoren was slender but not slight, his strength bound tightly in long limbs and narrow shoulders, the kind that revealed itself only in motion. His skin held the warm copper tones of the southern valleys, deepened by the sun. His hair, cropped close, lay flat against his head. His eyes were dark and quick, carrying a mischievous light that never quite faded, and when he smiled, it came crookedly, one corner of his mouth lifting before the other. He moved like a runner even at rest, never fully still and always ready. Yet there was also an ease to him that made the authority of the elder folk seem optional and tradition negotiable.
"Nothing."
Arnoren agreed.
"Which is almost certainly very bad news."
Havjörn frowned, eyes returning dutifully to the south. The land fell away there, sloping down toward the lake that marked the valley's threshold. The water lay dark and still now, reflecting little of the sky's fading glory. Beyond it, the road vanished between the southern hills, threading its way through the pass like a thin grey snake.
"No travelers,"
Havjörn said.
"Not for days." "6,"
Arnoren noted mildly. Havjörn glanced at him, then back to the road. Arnoren was only a year older, but he carried himself like someone who had already decided what the world was and found it wanting. There was an ease to him that Havjörn envied. He himself felt each moment of the watch to be a test he might fail without warning.
"They say bandits,"
Havjörn ventured.
"on the south road." "They always say bandits,"
Arnoren replied.
"Bandits are convenient. They don't argue back, and you can blame them for nearly anything. But what sort of raid could stop all travelers?" "What about flooding?"
Havjörn pressed.
"The spring rains have been heavy this year. If the low roads washed out..." "Possible,"
Arnoren allowed.
"but someone would have sent word, a runner at least. Floods don't swallow men, horses, and wagons whole."
Havjörn hesitated, then said quietly,
"Plague? Or orcs?"
Arnoren turned his head then, studying him with something like surprise. Not mockery, just interest.
"You've been listening to the old men?" "They remember things,"
Havjörn said, defensive before he could stop himself.
"Yes.
Arnoran said.
They remember spirits in the forests and hear voices in the wind. Memory is not the same as understanding.
Hovjorn flushed, but held his ground.
You shouldn't dismiss it.
I didn't.
Arnoran said lightly.
I merely put it in its proper place.
And where is that?
Arnoran glanced at Hovjorn out of the corners of his eyes and did not respond to this.
I think it's war with the East.
The words settled between them, heavier than the others had been. War did not belong to stories or speculation. It belonged to blood and smoke, and men who did not come home. Hovjorn swallowed.
You don't really think.
I don't know.
Arnoran said.
We have precious little evidence of anything right now.
The light continued to fade. Shadows stretched long fingers across the road, gathering in the low places where the land dipped and folded. Hovjorn leaned forward slightly, squinting.
I don't like this part.
He muttered. Laughing lightly, Arnoran asked,
The dark?
Not seeing.
Hovjorn said.
It feels like the land is holding its breath.
Arnoran smiled faintly.
You're poetic for a farmer's son.
Hovjorn bristled, then forced himself to let it pass.
It's getting harder to tell what's moving and what's just shadow.
Well, that's our cue to stop admiring the sunset and start earning our supper.
Arnoran said, straightening a little. They stood more alert now, the easy rhythm of their conversation giving way to silence, broken only by the evening wind and the distant cry of waterfowl settling for the night. Then Hovjorn stiffened.
There.
He said, sharply pointing out to the pass. Arnoran followed his gaze.
Where?
South of the lake.
Hovjorn said, pointing.
By the road. Something's moving.
Arnoran squinted.
A deer?
No.
Hovjorn said.
Too upright.
The shape moved again, slow and deliberate, emerging from one band of shadow into another. Hovjorn's heart began to pound.
It looks like it has two heads.
He said in shocked surprise.
It's an orc.
Arnoran blinked. Then he laughed again. Hovjorn rounded on him.
This isn't funny.
Not two heads.
Arnoran said, still smiling.
One head and one bird.
A bird?
A raven.
Arnoran said.
Big one, nasty temper. Likes perching on shoulders when it's not trying to peck your eyes out.
Hovjorn stared.
You sure?
I'd stake my boots on it.
Arnoran said.
That's Branmouth.
The druid?
The very same.
Relief and embarrassment crashed together in Hovjorn's chest.
I've never seen him before.
Arnoran watched the figure a moment longer.
Apart from the bird, you can tell it's him by the way he walks. It's like he's listening to something no one else can hear.
Hovjorn hesitated.
You know him?
Arnoran shrugged.
More than most. He comes and goes.
Then how?
He's my father's best friend.
Hovjorn turned to him fully now, questioning.
Your father?
Talvorin.
Arnoran said, as if naming the weather.
High Druid of Dorvanion.
He said with a flourish of the hand. For a moment, the watchtower, the valley, even the fading light seemed to fall away. Hovjorn stared at Arnoran as though seeing him for the first time.
You're Talvorin's son?
Yes.
I didn't know.
No reason you should.
Arnoran said.
I rarely bring it up.
But that means...
Hovjorn faltered, searching for words.
That means you could train.
Arnoran laughed.
Many believe the druidic calling passes from father to son only, but anyone can train.
Then, emphatically, he said,
It's not for me, though.
Hovjorn hesitated, then said quietly,
I want to be a druid.
Arnoran looked at him, really looked, and something in his expression softened.
Do you?
I think so.
Hovjorn said.
I mean, I respect them. I believe what they teach. or I want to. Sometimes I worry I only want it because it feels larger than farming.
That
Arnoran said gently.
is possibly the most open thing you've said all evening.
Hovjorn took a breath.
You don't believe them?
I believe in trees, but not elves.
Arnoran said.
And raiders, but not orcs. And people thinking for themselves. I believe the druids once knew more than they do now, and that they've spent generations pretending the knowing never slipped.
That's dangerous talk.
Hovjorn said, glancing down on the inner court of the fortress. Arnoran smiled thinly.
Truth often is.
They fell silent then, watching as Branmith's solitary figure drew nearer to the fort. The raven shifted on his shoulder, spreading one wing briefly before settling again.
Druid incoming,
Shouted Arnoran to the guards at the gate. A horn sounded from the lower yard, and soon after, 2 more young men appeared from the stairs to relieve them. Hovjorn exhaled, not realizing until then how tightly he had been holding himself. As they descended toward the courtyard, Arnoran yawned.
I'm going to sleep as soon as supper is done.
I want to hear what the druid says, but I'm nervous to meet him.
Hovjorn replied. Arnoran sighed theatrically, and in mock warning he said,
He'll tell stories, long ones, with morals.
Good.
Arnoran smiled.
Fine, I'll introduce you.
He replied.
But
He thought to himself.
I'm going to stir the old man up a bit.
Below, the fire crackled softly. Branmith sat with 2 older men, speaking low. Branmith was lean and weathered, a man shaped by long roads and longer silences. His scalp was bare, darkened and burnished by years beneath open sky, and his face was lined not with age alone, but with the marks of wind, smoke, and watchfulness. A heavy beard, iron dark and threaded with grey, was braided into 2 thick cords that fell to the middle of his chest, bound neatly and without ornament. His eyes were deep-set and steady, measuring more than they revealed, and when he looked at a man, it felt as though he were listening rather than seeing. A raven perched on his shoulder with familiar ease, its dark gaze alert and unblinking, and together they gave the impression of having arrived long before anyone noticed, and of intending to leave only when it suited them. When he looked up and saw Arnoran, his weathered face split into a smile.
Ah, the son of Talvorin comes down from his tower at last.
Arnoran bowed exaggeratedly.
I came to make sure you haven't lost your mind.
Branmith smiled, and turning to Hovjorn, said simply,
I am Branmith.
Hovjorn swallowed nervously.
I am Hovjorn, son of Björnar.
Then, in a rush, he asked the question he had been holding since sunset.
What did you see in the south?
The fire snapped as a length of resin-rich pine shifted inward, sending a brief fountain of sparks between the young men. Branmith did not answer at once. He watched the embers settle, his fingers resting loosely on his staff, the raven on his shoulder turning one bright eye toward Hovjorn, as if measuring him. Other men were gathering about the fire. Branmith exhaled through his nose.
Very little.
Arnoran snorted.
That's not an answer.
It is the most honest one.
Branmith replied, without looking at him.
I saw roads that should have carried wagons and voices, and they carried neither. I saw fields with crops half-tended, and no hands to tend them. I saw no smoke that should have been rising at evening.
A murmur went through the men, with still more gathering at the news of Branmith's arrival. Even the men cooking the evening meal were gathering. At this, Arnoran had the urge to ask them if they intended to let the food burn, but he restrained himself. Oblivious to the impending culinary disaster, Hovjorn leaned forward.
You mean the villages were...
Empty.
Branmith said.
Abandoned in haste. Empty, as if the people had stepped aside all at once and never stepped back.
The 2 older men sitting at the fire exchanged glances. One of them looked upward, and whispered a short plea in the old valley way.
How many?
Arnoran asked. Ranmith's mouth twitched.
You always ask of numbers.
Someone has to.
Arnoran said.
How many empty villages?
Ranmith's gaze lifted to the darkened sky beyond the courtyard walls.
3 that I passed through, and a 4th where I turned back.
Why?
Because it was burned,
Ranmith said.
and because I did not like what I saw there.
The fire seemed to dim, though Hovjorn suspected it was only his imagination.
Burned how?
Not in the way lightning starts an uncontrolled fire,
Ranmith said.
This was ruin. Roofs fallen inward, doors hacked apart, and arrows.
Hovjorn swallowed.
Arrows?
Ranmith nodded.
Dozens of them, in walls, in posts, in the ground. Many men must have fallen.
Arnoran leaned back, folding his arms.
Bandits. Raiders.
He said, now hoping it was true in the face of Branmith's news.
Raiders use what they can steal.
Ranmith replied.
These were not stolen, and bandits do not carry bodies away.
Hovjorn found his voice again.
What was different about the arrows?
Branmith's fingers tightened slightly on his staff.
The shafts were dark, stained with something that was not sap or pitch. Paint swirled along them in patterns, marks I have not before seen. And the fletching.
He paused.
It smelled wrong.
Wrong how?
Hovjorn pressed.
Sharp,
Branmith said.
like bitterness, like rot made strong. It caught in the throat.
Hovjorn felt a chill creep along his arms.
You've never seen arrows like that before?
Never,
Branmith said, pausing again.
but I have heard of them.
The courtyard was very quiet now. Arnoran shifted.
You're thinking of the Chronicles? Of orcs?
He asked incredulously. Branmith looked at him then, eyes sharp beneath his weathered brow.
I am.
The Chronicles are stories.
Arnoran said.
Abstract warnings dressed as history.
They are memories,
Branmith replied in exasperation.
written by those who survived long enough to write.
Hovjorn's heart was beating fast.
You really believe it was orcs?
Branmith did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low.
I fear it may have been.
One of the older men sitting next to Branmith now cursed under his breath. The other looked at Branmith appraisingly.
That's impossible.
Arnoran said.
The orcs never existed.
Branmith's mouth tightened.
They vanished from sight. They fled into the night.
Branmith asserted. The words hung uncomfortably in the firelight. Hovjorn glanced between them, sensing something older than the moment stirring beneath the surface.
What about the people?
He asked to loosen the tension.
The ones who didn't fall. Where did they go?
Branmith shook his head slowly.
That is what troubles me most. Their flight must have been swift. But it was not north, for they did not come here. Did they go west toward the rainwood and the seacoast? Did they go east toward the mountains? Or did they go south to the southern sea?
Then, with a burning curiosity in his eyes, his intense gaze fell on Arnoran again, and he said solemnly,
Your mother's people have vanished, Arnoran.
A silence followed that no one seemed eager to break. At last, Branmith straightened, planting the butt of his staff more firmly against the stones.
Listen to me now, all of you.
Branmith paused and gazed around the ring of men.
When you are relieved of watch duty, you must speak of this, but you will not spread fear.
A general murmur of agreement quickly passed through the crowd. Then Branmith's eyes drilled into the young men. Hovjorn nodded at once. Arnoran hesitated, then inclined his head.
You will warn.
Branmith continued.
You will tell the truth as far as it is known, but you will also encourage the people to prepare, to stand watch, to gather stores, to make arrows, to sharpen swords and spears, to remember that we are not helpless children hiding behind old walls.
And to trust in the Father.
Dorvanion said quietly. Branmith's gaze softened.
Yes, in the Father above the Aethar, in the strength he placed in this world and in those who walk upon it.
Arnoran's mouth twisted.
Faith? What good will that do beyond the sharpening of swords and spears?
It steadies and strengthens the hand that holds them.
Suddenly, a smell of burning came on the wind. "The food!" shouted the men. "Panafel, Heskereth, you fools! See to our supper!" And with this, many of the men dispersed to finish tasks or to follow the cooks into the mess. The raven shifted, croaking softly, and Branmith sighed as if a decision had settled in him.
It grows late,
He said.
and I have given you enough shadows for one night.
He gestured toward the fire.
Sit, if you will. I will tell you a tale.
Arnoran groaned.
Please don't.
Branmith shot him a look.
This is not for you alone.
Arnoran rolled his eyes with theatrical exaggeration.
I suspect I know the story, whichever you choose.
Clearly annoyed, Branmith retorted.
And yet you learned little.
Dorvanion's eyes lit.
I wish to hear whatever story you choose.
Branmith smiled.
Good lad. I will begin at the beginning, I think. The birth of the 3 daughters.
Arnoran muttered something uncharitable under his breath and dropped onto a bench.
Don't sit yet, young man.
Branmith snapped.
Go and fetch us some stew, and then I will tell the tale and sing the song.
As Arnorin and Havjörn walked toward the mess, the raven stirred on Branmith's shoulder and gave a low, uneasy croak, turning its head toward the southern pass. Branmith followed its gaze. Then, too softly for any but the bird to hear, he muttered darkly.
Yes, I saw it too. But what was that dark shape, uncounted in the chronicles?
This concludes Chapter 1 of The Sundering of Ways, first book of the Avalloneth.